F.E.A.R is one of the best shooters I've played in years. Yeah, I know it released back in 2005, but I only started playing it about 2 weeks ago, so it's new to me, damn it. In my last video, I stated that this game was a better Half-Life sequel than Half-Life 2 itself. If you've never played F.E.A.R, you're likely pretty confused as to how that could be. F.E.A.R is just some spooky horror shooter, right? Wrong. Very, very wrong. Now, just so you understand my perspective, I rarely ever care about a story in games. Skipping cutscenes is just how I tend to roll. But because of this trait of mine, I have no clue how good or bad the story is in F.E.A.R. It never got in the way much, and I didn't mind what I heard in passing, but none of this really matters because the atmosphere and story aren't really what I'm wanting to talk about in this video. I mostly want to focus on how the gameplay of F.E.A.R is a direct evolution of Half-Life's insanely innovative and entertaining combat loop. For example, look at this footage I recorded yesterday. I ran through this one encounter a few times, making sure to use plenty of different strategies and mindsets each run. Let's break down my tactics for a bit. On my first try, I decided to kill the red beret soldier in front with the assault rifle. Having completely missed, I turn my attention to the large boxes of explosives behind him. The blast kills the soldier instantly. After this, I check my surroundings for enemies and proceed to this bunker to resupply. I head for the room ahead of me, but I quickly notice gunfire to my back. I attempt to kill the enemy closest to me first, however, only to misclick and blow myself up. Great job. After respawning from my brilliant quick save, I tactically shoot the enemy behind me before he surprises me with gunfire like last time. After failing to critically injure him, however, I head into unexplored territory. I notice that the soldiers here are fighting a headcrab. Taking advantage of this peculiar situation would be wise, so I evade to a strategic position and get ready for a bit of an ambush. The lone soldier with his back turned obviously didn't stand a chance. Moving on, I shoot another explosive box just in case there's a hidden enemy. There wasn't, but it sure did look cool. I then decide to check the other side of this horseshoe-like arena when I encounter a few more enemies. Back in my perfect hiding spot, I decide to pull a new strategy. A grenade should work, if I don't completely miss. New strategy! Shotgun to the face. After realizing that a shotgun can't help much with my current predicament, I swap back to the assault rifle and take out one soldier with a bit of skillful shooting. Sort of. Not wanting to take any chances with the next enemy, as I'm low on health, I decide to simply blow him up with a secondary fire of the rifle. After this, I move on to the final opponent, who goes down after a few rounds. And all of this was just one way of dealing with the situation. In some of my other attempts, I successfully used the revolver to snipe enemies from more of a distance, or use a laser mine to trap an enemy in an interesting and fun situation. And I'm sure I'd be able to do even more if I were a bit later in the game with a full arsenal. This all may seem a bit simple, but what's important to keep in mind is that the game never tells you what to do in situations like this. All you have is your weaponry and your wits. And it's up to you to figure out how to use your tools efficiently. Now, how exactly does this have anything to do with F.E.A.R? It has everything to do with F.E.A.R. It's as if the designers of the game ask themselves, how can we take the tactility of Half-Life and combine it with a John Woo film? Because every fight scene in F.E.A.R takes the dynamic fight arenas of Half-Life, adds far more advanced AI, makes shots hit way harder, and slows everything down to a crawl. All of this raises tension levels to the max. Every shot in F.E.A.R feels immensely powerful, given that one mistake can easily leave you dead in an instant. Especially on the highest difficulty, which I highly recommend playing on, by the way. But none of this is impossibly difficult, because of the brilliant slow motion mechanic. You have complete control of everything that happens in a fight, and it's generally your fault if things go south. Do you see how this is a true evolution from the combat of Half-Life? It's a new spin on what worked from the past while paying homage to how these fights worked originally. In fact, if you play on normal difficulty and don't use slow-mo, the game suddenly feels almost exactly like a slower Half-Life. It's pretty wonderful. And this is why I don't like Half-Life 2 as a sequel. I like the way the guns feel in that game, but no part of the combat plays at all like the original. But it's not just that. F.E.A.R doesn't really play exactly like the original Half-Life, but Half-Life's blood is deep in F.E.A.R's veins. I sense true innovation born from wanting to add a new twist to a classic combat system. I sense almost no innovation in adding a shiny physics toy that's cool for the first few times you hurl saws at zombies, or adding far fewer interesting weapons and enemies and whatnot, or adding a retarded sprint meter. These are things that would be fine in any other FPS game of the mid-2000s, but not from Half-Life fucking 2. Again, sorry if Half-Life 2 is your favorite game ever. It's a fine creation, just not one I deem as an all-time classic or anything. It's overrated, plain and simple. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe and comment below to argue with me about which shooty game shoots the bestest. I'd also like to shout out resident Half-Life 2 defender, Flugmorph, who is currently my one and only patron. If you'd like to join him in the shoutout circle, regardless of your worthless opinion, be sure to become one yourself by clicking the link in the description. I'll see you all tomorrow. Hopefully, if I don't get assassinated by the Valve police. Bye-bye.